Hi everybody, my name is Dave Hicking, and today I'm excited to give you a demo of HelpSpot, which has been helping teams manage their customer support efficiently since 2005. This is going to be a nice quick demo, hopefully, and let's just start with what you see right now, which is what you see when you log in as a support agent, as somebody who's doing work inside of HelpSpot. This is what we call the Workspace. This is the agent interface where all of your support requests are managed. You can see there's all kinds of stuff going on here, and we're going to dive into all of that. But before we go into all of that, let's start with just an overview of what's going on here. So like I said, we've got the Workspace up at the top. We've got Knowledge, which is quite a title, I know, but this is the centralized location to build both public-facing documentation for your customers and private or internal documentation for your team. We call them Knowledge Books, because they are organized into books. Books have chapters, chapters have pages, and it's really easy to work with. So if you need documentation, it's optional. But if you need documentation for your team or for your customers, we have it built right into HelpSpot. Next up is reports. So that's beyond the scope of this demo, but just to explain a little bit about what we have for reports, if you're coming from just using a shared email inbox, then you probably struggle to come up with good metrics, or you are really working hard to report those metrics to somebody else. That's a thing of the past with HelpSpot. You can monitor your support performance by tracking request volume, response times, tons of other key metrics. Really powerful, really customizable, which honestly is going to be a trend throughout this demo. Next up is responses. So responses help you save time by using pre-written replies for common questions or partial responses like links or text snippets, or you can even use responses to create complete emails with attachments and a whole lot more. If you are using email right now, then this is equivalent to an email template, except it can do a ton more. Super easy to create, really easy to use when you're inside of HelpSpot. I'll show you a little bit more about that later. Of course, we've also got the admin section of the app where you can connect to mailboxes, configure custom fields and users and all kinds of stuff. We don't have time to dive into the admin section on this demo, but obviously it's there. But just a quick note, only people who are admins in the system can see it. So don't worry if you're worried about everybody on your team being able to go in and change stuff, you can configure that. Okay, we also have search, which, as you would expect, super powerful. You can do quite a bit with it. And then we have a link to the support portal. So this is a place where customers can submit requests online. They can access published documentation if you decide to do that. So let's take a look at the portal really quick. Let me click on it here, and you'll see it is really clean. And we did that on purpose. We want it to be usable for everybody, but just know you have total control over how this looks. If you need this to look like how your regular website looks or how your company's internal website or internal site looks, you can totally do that. You have total control. So you'll notice that we have some links over here on the left-hand side. Let me just talk about this really quick. So you can have a place where people can submit a request for help. You've got the basic stuff like name, email, phone, obviously details about the request, but you can even, and this is one of the reasons why you might want to use the support portal and use these request forms, you can have categories. We'll talk about categories in a bit, and then categories can have custom fields, which we'll also talk about in a bit. So if you have a need or a reason why you want to capture more data from the folks who are submitting problems, who are submitting requests to you, this is a great way to do that. Another major reason why people use the support portal is to have links to those knowledge books I talked about, that documentation I was talking about earlier. We've got an example here in this demo. So it's really clean, but again, you can customize how this looks. So if you want to use fonts, if you want to use colors, whatever you want to use to make it look how your site or how your brand needs to look, not a problem. And I'm just going to dive into one of these. We've just got text in this example here, but you can have images, you can have attachments, you can have tables, you can use HTML. Really, sky's the limit with this. So that's a quick look at the support portal. Now let's dive back into the rest of the demo. Let's go back to the Workspace. Okay, so we're going to do a little tour down the left side of the screen here. So let's start with create request. Really straightforward, right? So you're going to almost certainly hook up HelpSpot to an email account of some kind, but sometimes people just need to submit a request manually. Maybe somebody called you, maybe they Slacked you or sent you a Teams message, or they texted you, or they stopped by your desk, or who knows what. Maybe you were working on a problem and you realized, I got to do this whole other thing. Well, obviously you can just create a request yourself. Really straightforward. Underneath that, you've got inbox, MyQ, spam, and trash. Let's start with spam and trash, since they're the least fun things that we're going to talk about in this demo. Because you are going to hook up HelpSpot to an email account of some kind, that means that there's still a chance you can get spam, you can get emails that you just don't really need and you want to put in the trash. So we have those controls really accessible from individual tickets. And of course, we're going to have a place to put the spam and put the trash just in case you mistakenly put something there, you can go recover it. Really basic, just like working with spam and trash in email. That's not really why you're here though, I know. Let's talk about something that's way more interesting, and that's the inbox. So I'm in the inbox now, and you're going to see quite a bit of information here, but let's sort of roll through it. So you've got this big take it button. What does that mean? Well, the inbox is where all of your new requests are going to come in by default, whether it's from an email, whether it's from the support portal, doesn't matter. It all comes here by default. Now, you can change that. You can certainly have it where, if an email comes in from a particular mailbox, if someone selects a particular category on that support portal, create a request form, sure, you can have it routed, you can do all kinds of stuff, but by default, it comes into the inbox, and this is where you're doing your triaging. This is where you're doing your sorting and figuring out who's going to work on what. So you've got a nice big take it button, right? If you want to just work on an individual ticket, you can click that take it button, no problem. But maybe you have a bunch of tickets that have come in and you need to work with them really quickly. Well, we've got these checkboxes so you can do these bulk actions. Bulk actions are a really great way to work with a lot of tickets at once. You can bulk assign. So if you see 5, 50, 500 tickets, well, I hope you don't have 500 tickets that are in your inbox, but you can take a bunch of tickets, you can assign them to the same person, no problem. Maybe you need to batch close tickets for whatever reason. That's okay too. Now we get into some really fun stuff. Batch respond. So if you've ever done support and you have something that has gone down or some service or something that has caused a whole bunch of people that you work with to all write in with a nearly identical problem. If you're just using an email inbox, then you have to reply individually to all those people. Maybe you even are like copying and pasting, and you don't need to do any of that. With a batch response, you can select all the tickets that you need to, and then write one response, send it to all those people, and even close all those tickets as you send it, no problem. You can also merge multiple tickets together. Now, I'm sure you've had this happen if you do support, where somebody is, we'll say, a little eager. They're really enthusiastic about the possibility that they can get their problem solved by you. And so maybe they send an email at the end of the day, and then they send an email first thing in the morning, and maybe you don't get to it. And all of a sudden, you haven't had a chance to look at the inbox here. Maybe you had a meeting, who knows? But you come in and there's 2, 3, 4 tickets from the same person. You can merge them all together, no problem. You can also batch change the status. So for whatever reason, if you need to change the status of 7 or 17 tickets, no problem. And of course, you can batch move things to trash or spam. Now, these batch actions are going to be available any page where we have a list of tickets. So we've got the inbox here, but you're going to see these same controls in my queue, and you're going to see them also in filter pages, which we're going to get to a little later. I'm going to unselect these. And the last thing I want to really note here is these columns are totally customizable. So we've got things like customer, initial request, age, and status, but maybe you don't want to see that. You don't want to see age. You want to see, the day it was created. Maybe you don't just want to see the initial request, but you want to see the subject if it came in via email. No problem. You can go up here to options. You can click customize columns, and you can define which columns you want to see. You can even define the order of them, the size of them, right? So if you want them to only take up so much space, no problem. Truly, this inbox, you can make it your own. So that's the inbox. Now let's move to my queue. So this is where you can see requests that have been assigned to you. Just as with the inbox, the My Queue page can be fully customized. So for example, if you wanted to see categories as one of those columns, no problem. You can, again, change the size of this. You can, decide which columns you even see. So maybe you don't want age, you want a different one. Yeah, this is all totally possible. There are a couple other things that are different about the My Queue page versus the inbox page that I want to highlight. So you've got a little icon here. What's this icon for? It tells you, how did this come in? The little globe means it came in through the support portal. The little envelope tells you it came in via email. That can be useful. So you've got that right there. You also have this ID column. So every ticket created in HelpSpot, every request created in HelpSpot has a unique ID number. You click on this, it's going to open the ticket for you. And this is how you'll refer to tickets. You will see them, your coworkers will see them, your customers will see them. So this is kind of an important thing in HelpSpot. And now you've got some icons here that you're looking at this and you're going, what's going on? I see green, I see arrows. Okay, so green indicates that there has been a change to this ticket since the last time that you opened it. The left arrow means that the last thing that happened was a reply from somebody on staff. So you replied back to that person, which is great. And if I had opened one of these and then didn't do anything and didn't reply or just sort of sat there, then this circle would be a light gray. So it would indicate kind of basically the difference. If you're used to working in email, it means that it has been read effectively. And again, those bulk actions available, really easy. You can select all of these. You can assign, close, batch respond, merge, status, etc., etc. Okay, that's my queue. Below that, we've got a search box for quick search. You can type one of these IDs in and you can immediately pull up a ticket. So if someone says, hey, I'm working on ticket 12532, you can type that in here and it'll immediately pull it up for you. Okay, now I want to talk about filters. So what are filters? Filters are the way that HelpSpot lets you create custom views for different request types, different scenarios. Basically, it lets you get different views into the tickets that are in the system. What do I mean by that? So HelpSpot by default shows you what's in your inbox. It also shows you what's assigned to you. But what if you want to see all tickets that are just in your system? Well, you can make a filter. In this case, in this demo, we have one called All Open. This is a filter that shows you all tickets that are open. And just like the inbox and my queue screens, you'll notice we've got our multi-select. We've got our checkboxes here. You can customize which columns appear. You have lots of options here. So all open, super common, really useful. What if you want to see all of the requests that are assigned to each of your coworkers? Well, you can make quick filters to do just that. So I've just clicked into this filter for Chris, which is showing me all requests that are assigned to Chris right now. And then if I want to jump and go, show me everything assigned to Ian, show me everything assigned to Matt, et cetera, et cetera. And you can totally customize for each of these. Again, how this looks. So you can make each of these your own, but maybe you don't need to see it open by agent. Maybe you want to see it open by category. We'll talk about categories in a bit. Every ticket, every request has a category that is associated with it. And what if you want to see, okay, show me my sales requests. Well, now I need to jump over and let me see all the server requests. So this is a really powerful way to allow you to have just the right type of visibility into what's going on in your system. And it's really easy to make. So before we finish here, I'm going to show you how this actually works by editing this one right here. Click edit up in the upper right, and you'll see that filters have a name. You can define who can view it, and you can organize them however you'd like. And then what you're doing is you're going to see this interface in a couple different places in HelpSpot. You're basically saying, which conditions do I want this filter to be true for? And so in this case, show me everything that's open and everything that's in category server. But as you can see in this dropdown, you have tons of different options for things that you can have be conditions for a filter. Maybe you want to see status, urgency, which mailbox was it mailed to, custom fields, which we'll talk about in a second, even things like date, times, how long has it been since this ticket was replied to, right? So if you have an SLA that you're trying to stay on top of where your goal is to reply to everybody within 24 or 48 hours, you can have a filter that shows you, show me all tickets in the system, all tickets in a particular category, whatever you'd like, that have not been replied to or not been handled within that amount of time. You can have a nice filter that you can directly jump into and handle those tickets whenever you'd like. Tons of power, tons of possibility here. Okay, now let's go back to my queue and let's dive into an individual request so we can see what's going on here. Let's start by looking at the information at the top of the screen, where we've got the customer info. Then we're gonna jump over to the right-hand side. We're gonna talk about these fields over here, the metadata of the ticket, information about the ticket itself. Then we're gonna go to this request history at the bottom, see what's going on here. Then we're gonna talk about actually using the text editor here in the center, and then that'll be the end. So customer information at the top, we've got name, first and last name, we've got email, but we've also got a phone number and we've got a customer ID. And you might be asking yourself, how did we get that from an email? Well, we didn't. So now you're asking yourself, how did we get that in the first place? So you have a couple options here. You could manually type them in every single time. I would not recommend that, but you could. You could also put them back. If I go to this other page, you could put them on the submit a request form. You have a phone number field, but you could add customer ID field. You could add whatever you want here, but that's probably not ideal either. So how did we get that? And why do we have this here? HelpSpot has a really powerful feature called live lookup. So what live lookup does is it allows you to pull information out of other systems and into HelpSpot. Again, it's optional. You don't have to use it on day one. But if you have information about your customers whoever you're supporting in some other system of record. Maybe it's Active Directory, maybe it's a CRM, maybe it's an HR tool, maybe it's a database somewhere, then you probably want that to always be that other place, that other system. You want that to be the system of record about your customers, but you need that information in HelpSpot. So this is much more than an integration, because it's not just something that's pre-configured. You get total control over which data do you want to pull out of those systems. So in this demo example, we're showing not just first name, last name, we're showing department, organization, customer ID. So you can see that right alongside the problem that they're reporting, which gives you important context, but then you can go even further and you can have this information populate these fields over here on the right-hand side. So we have location. If you have different locations that you support, different offices that you support, and you can pull that information out of your system, you can have that information moved into one of these fields over here on the right-hand side. That way, when someone opens this ticket, they can see which location and which office are they in. Now, maybe you don't have multiple locations you support, but you can imagine the different things that you can do here. And then on top of all of that, Live Lookup can also be set to run automatically. So you don't have to come to this tab and hit the insert customer information and then do it. It can be configured so that every single time a new ticket is created, we're running Live Lookup and inserting that information into the ticket metadata on the right-hand side so that whoever is working on this ticket knows everything they need to know. If you're an IT organization who has equipment names like computer names and printer names in your Active Directory or in some other system, you can pull that and have that populated field here. If you do HR, you can imagine other things that you might want in this ticket, in the ticket itself. It's super powerful, incredibly customizable, because truly the sky's the limit. And as long as your system of record has an API or a public database access in some way, we can probably make Live Lookup work for you alongside of you. Lots more details about Live Lookup on the HelpSpot website. I totally recommend checking it out. One last thing up here at the top, which is history search. So if you have ever done customer support, and if you're watching this, that's probably the case, then you know that people will often write in about a new request, a new problem, but they're going to reference something else that has happened to them. Some request they made a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, and they will refer to it vaguely. Oh, I had a similar problem or something like that. Well, this happens all the time, and what you often have to do is either hopefully remember it, maybe you ask your coworkers, maybe you go search. Well, we have a built-in history search right here in the ticket so that you can immediately go and view a list of every ticket this person has put in. In this demo, we've only got the one here, but I'm going to do another kind of search, which I'll explain in a second. And you can see here's all the tickets that match this search type. And so for search type, we have maybe it's email domain. So if you support people outside your company and someone says, oh, my coworker reported this problem, maybe they have a company email address that has the same domain. Well, you could look up every ticket that came in from that email domain. Maybe the person used one email for this request and another email for another request. Well, instead of email address match, you can just match on their full name. But either way, when you find whatever you're looking for in this history search, you can click and open it and you can read everything you want to know about this ticket, about the old ticket, right here in the new ticket. So you can see what's going on and hopefully have a much better idea of what they're talking about. So history search, really, really nice for those times when people are referring to old requests. Okay, now let's jump over to the right-hand side and let's talk about all these fields that are over here. What's going on? So we've got status. Now, we include statuses by default in HelpSpot, but these are completely customizable as long as you have one status to indicate that a ticket is open and another status to indicate that a ticket has been closed. You can do whatever you'd like. Maybe escalated doesn't work for you. Maybe you need on hold instead of waiting for a reply or whatever you want. It's not a problem. You can customize them. You can add, remove. Truly, sky's the limit, as you would expect with HelpSpot. Statuses are great for communicating to other folks using HelpSpot what is the status of this ticket, but they can do so much more. These filters that we talked about before over here on the left-hand side, statuses can be a part of that filter. So maybe you want to see every ticket that's open and is escalated or waiting for a reply, or if you have an on hold status or whatever statuses you might have. It's really nice to see that. So you could have shortcuts, filters, if you will, over here on the left-hand side so that you can just dive in and see every ticket, every request with that kind of status. But you can also do reporting on statuses. Show me every request that has come in the last 30 days that matches a status. Not a problem. The last thing you can do with statuses is you can trigger automations based off of them. So we haven't talked about automations much. HelpSpot has two types of automations, triggers and rules, that allow you to do a ton of different things. But as an example, you could say every time a request comes in and is updated to have a status of escalated, then send a text message or send a notification to somebody, or maybe assign it to somebody specifically, or whatever you'd like to do. So statuses communicate the status of the request to everybody in the system, but they can also be filtered, reported on, and they can trigger automations. The same is true of categories. So categories, you'll see them here. We'll include some by default, but you can add or subtract, rewrite, do whatever you want with categories. Categories can be filtered, they can be reported on, they can drive automation, just like statuses. They also, in addition to doing the base work of a category, which is just how you are going to break up your tickets, how you're going to categorize your requests, they can also control who can be assigned to this ticket. So in this case, I've got general sales, and you see I've got a nice list of people who might be able to work on that. But what if this is actually a server problem? Well, now I've only got one person who can work on it, and that's Ian. So if you have different groups of people on your team or in your organization who, this person only works on benefits, but this person works on payroll, or whatever type of request that you're dealing with, that's a great way to make sure that the right people are working on the right problem. Also, in addition to defining who can be assigned to that category, they also control tags and custom fields. So you see we've got tags here for this server category. We've got tags like Linux, Windows, performance, offline, just different kinds of ways that you might want to tag a request so that you can filter, you can report, and you can automate, just like the other things. So maybe you want to report every ticket that has been not just server, but server with Linux. No problem, right? You can do that. And tags work nicely with the categories. So that way you can start with a certain amount of categories, add as many tags as you want to in order to sort of, organize your tickets and get reporting just how you'd like. And it just gives you a lot of flexibility. Underneath tags, you have custom fields. So custom fields allow you to store whatever kind of data you might need for a ticket. They can be drop-down lists like what we have here. They can be date or date time fields like what we have here. They could be a text box. They can be a checkbox. You can have custom fields apply to all of your categories or maybe just one. So, in this case, maybe if you had one for location, maybe that might apply to all of them. But due date, maybe that only applies to some, or whoever, who knows what kind of custom fields you may want for your HelpSpot setup. It's incredibly, incredibly customizable. And again, custom fields can be filtered, they can be reported on, and they can trigger automations. You could have it where every time something is in building B, maybe you have a contact over there who needs to know about that. No problem. You can have that kind of automation run. You're not going to use all of this on day one, but building out tags, building out custom fields, building out automations, your filters to view things, the reports to go along with them. Hopefully you're getting a sense of how you can start really simple with HelpSpot, right? Where you're hooking up a mailbox to it, you're creating some users, making sure the statuses and the categories fit, and then you're getting started. But as you use the system, as you grow into it, you have a lot of capability, a lot of potential, a lot of ability to do almost whatever you might need to do in order to make it your own, to make it work best for you. Last but not least, over here on the right-hand side is the ability to mark a request as urgent. If I toggle it, now you see we've got a red bar here at the top. And if I were to go back and look at the My Queue page, the text would be in red. That's all urgency does by default. But, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record here, urgency can be filtered. So you could have a filter, show me all urgent requests. They can be reported on, show me all requests that were marked as urgent in the last 30 days. And they can trigger automations. So anytime a request is marked as urgent, do the following things. Lots and lots of possibilities here. Okay, let's go to the bottom here and let's look at the request history. So this is where you can see the entire history of what's going on with this particular request. It's in reverse chronological order. So that means that what's at the very bottom of the request history is the start of that ticket, whether it was created manually or created by the customer. And you're going to see we've got some text here in this demo. We're just using demo text from Alice in Wonderland, but this request here from Zoe would have whatever Zoe's problem or request was when she wrote it. Now, over here on the right-hand side, you see we've got public, and up here we've got private, and you might not know what that means. So there are 3 kinds of updates: public, private, and external. Public doesn't mean public to the world. It means that it's something that the customer can see. So in this case, Zoe. Either it's something that they have written into you or that you have written back to them. So the initial request from Zoe is public. This note up here from Ian that has this, that's public right here. This is Ian's note back to Zoe, right? Public notes, public meaning that the customer can see them. In the middle, we have private notes. Now, sometimes you need to write just a note for yourself, a note for a coworker, keeping track of what you've done or what's left. That's what private notes are for. The customer never sees these. Only people who have logins to HelpSpot can see it. There's a third kind of update, which are external updates. These can be incredibly useful. External updates are for those times when you need to contact somebody or some organization outside of HelpSpot. Somebody elsewhere in your organization who doesn't use HelpSpot but is in charge of maintaining some system you rely on, or maybe a third-party vendor that you contract with. External updates allow you to send an email out of HelpSpot to those folks. They'll receive it just like any other email, and when they respond, it'll update the ticket and show up in the request history. This means that you don't have to leave HelpSpot and email a vendor from your own email account and then copy and paste everything back into HelpSpot. You can do it all right from the ticket. To do that, you click on External, and now you have all the options, all the customization you might need to send this like any old email. You can change the subject. You can add email address to the to field, CC, even BCC, and then you would just write the email right here in the body of HelpSpot. This is a great way to make sure that you don't have to, get out of HelpSpot, go open up your own Gmail or your own Office 365 email and write something and then copy and paste it and make sure you wrote it right. You can just do it all right from here. So no matter who picks up this ticket, they can always see in the request history everything that's going on. The last thing we want to do is explore the text editor for responding to requests. So formatting options up here at the top, everything from bold and italic to links to a whole lot more. Code blocks, quotes, indents, highlighting text, any way that you could conceivably want to style text that you are sending either as a public, private, or external note, you can do that, not a problem here. Okay, let's talk about responses, which are so incredibly useful that we actually have 3 different ways to use them inside of a ticket in HelpSpot. So you'll remember I mentioned responses earlier. Those are your pre-written replies, your partial responses, your fully formatted emails to common requests, things that you're always telling people about, a policy that you always have to detail. Maybe it's password reset information. Maybe it's who knows what. I'm sure as you're listening to this, you can imagine that you already have ideas, or maybe you even already have email templates that you would bring right over. So one way to find responses is to search for them. So if I start typing here, you'll notice it auto-completes and I've got, okay, great, it's going to show me my password reset response. But, not everybody likes to search because maybe you can't remember what you called it. Well, you can browse. So if I click on responses, we've got my most commonly used responses, but we also have just all responses. You can organize this however you'd like. I only have one in this demo, but you could make that look however you'd like. We have a third way to access responses. So this is for folks who don't want to stop typing in order to add a response. They don't want to take their hands off the keyboard and use a mouse or a trackpad. The way that you do this is you press the pound or the hashtag sign, and then you start typing the name of your response, and it auto-completes. Now, when I click on this, you're going to see some text get inserted, but there's other things that are going to happen as well. Okay, so I clicked on that, and now all of a sudden you can see I have some brackets and a $sign. What this is right here is a placeholder that allows you to always have, in this case, the customer's first name inserted in this reply when you send it to somebody. This is a great way to make sure that you are always spelling the person's name right. You can have another example of a placeholder in a response is the last name or the first name or the whole name, I guess, of the person who's actually working on the ticket. If you wanted to have like a little signature, a little sign off, don't worry about the formatting. When you go to create responses, we have a nice drop-down menu that lets you easily look for all the possibilities, insert them. You don't have to know about the formatting. All right, so we've got some basic text here, but There's a whole lot more that you could do if you wanted. You could have as much text as you like, first of all. You can add attachments, which I didn't mention earlier, but responses can have, not just responses, any update to a ticket can have attachments. So you could have that as a part of a response. But the response in this case also changed things about the ticket over here on the right-hand side. It changed the status to problem solved. It changed the category to software, and it changed the location to building B. And it did all that with one click. Now, when you start using responses, it's probably going to be something small where you have either a pre-written email template that you're just pulling over, or maybe you've got some things that immediately come to mind and you're just going to start with text, and that's totally fine. And then over time, as you use these responses, you'll realize, wow, I always change the status to problem solved, and I always change the category to this, and I always change the location or the due date or whatever custom fields you might have. No problem. You can just edit those responses and keep adding more and more capability to them until they just, work for you as best as humanly possible. So responses are really great. If you do customer service, help desk work of any kind, I know that you're imagining tons of different ways that you want to use responses. The last major thing I want to call in this demo is, again, the knowledge books that I mentioned earlier. We have really, really easy access to those knowledge books right here when you're working on a ticket in HelpSpot. If I click on this link that says knowledge, you'll see it pulls up my 2 books. You notice we have one that just says documentation and one that says test book (private). I know, really creatively named. It says private because HelpSpot has the notion of public documentation and private documentation. Public documentation is available on the support portal, right? You see I've got this book that says documentation here. Private documentation is not. It's just for the folks who are working inside HelpSpot. There are 2 really great use cases for accessing knowledge book information right here from within the ticket itself. One is if you need to look up documentation that is for the team, and you just want to reference it yourself. Maybe it's some policy, maybe it's really technical information. Who knows what it is? Great. You can look that up, reference it without having to open another tab or go search for it somewhere else. The other way is for your public-facing documentation. So I clicked on this here, and I'm just going to click on creating requests. So one of the great things about documentation is ideally your customers, your users are going to read it and be able to help themselves without having to write in a request and wait for you to reply. They can get the information they need. They can hopefully not feel frustrated. But we all know that people, maybe they don't read the documentation. Maybe they didn't find the documentation. Maybe they didn't even know where to go to it. So you can not only pull up the documentation and reference it, but you can immediately link to it. So that way you can send them that link as a part of your reply, whether it's a response or just a manually written reply. And you can make it really easy for folks. So you can say, yep, we absolutely can do that. Here's a link that explains everything you need to know. Send them that link, pull it up right from the knowledge book, and then you're on your way. All right, there is a ton more about HelpSpot that I could be demoing for you right now. I could show you reports in depth. I could talk about responses more, custom fields, triggers, mail rules. But that's it for this demo. Remember, with HelpSpot, you can streamline your customer support workflow, provide excellent service to your customers, and hopefully we gave you a little sneak peek at how you can do that. If you're interested in learning more, trying out HelpSpot, if you're interested in getting a full demo, please visit our website, reach out to a member of our team. Thanks for watching.